Friday. Welcome to this week's live. My name is Sherry Roth. I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Alberta, Canada. And most Fridays at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, I go live with a crafty project. And today I'm going to share actually 5 different ways that you can create beautiful single layer cards. Because a lot of times we think that our cards need to have layer upon layer upon layer to be beautiful. Well, I'm going to show you today that you can create beautiful cards with just a single layer of cardstock. And there's a few different techniques that I'll be including as well. So let's just jump right in. Okay, so for this first card, I'm starting with a piece of thick white cardstock, basic white cardstock, and I'm going to be using this stamp set, in particular this image right here. And then I'm going to pull my greeting from this everyday greeting stamp set. So I'm going to use the Thinking of You. This is an online exclusive item, so you won't find this in any of our publications, but you can find it online. And then this is from the 2024-25 annual Stampin' Up! Catalog. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first 3 cards that I'm sharing with you all include a technique. And they're all different types of masking techniques. Good morning, Shauna. So this first one, I'm going to use the Post-it labeling and cover-up tape. I call it Post-it masking tape. And it is about an inch, it's an inch wide. And I'm just going to decide, I'm going to use my glass mat here. I'm going to decide where I want it. I'm going to cut it so that it's a little bit longer than my card front. And this is just a standard size card front because it's going to serve the purpose of holding my card in place as well. So we'll do it, I think right about there should be good. So I'm using the lines on my glass mat to ensure that that's straight. And then it's a little longer, so that's going to hold it in place. Okay? So we've masked off that area. Now, if you don't have this tape, you don't have to use this. You could use a piece of washi tape. You can use a piece of, like just Post-it notes. You could use a cut Post-it notes, just a sticky part of Post-it notes, and use those across. So just use what you have. All right. Now I'm going to take that floral image and I'm going to use some peach pie ink. And I'm going to stamp a border. So I'm going to ink it up and just stamp all the way across the top. And then I'm going to rotate my image and I'm going to do the same thing along the bottom. But I'm not going to start in the same spot that I did because I don't want my images to look exactly the same on both borders. And then we'll do that. I think that looks good. All right, and now when we remove the masking tape, then we've got this fabulous border or strip across the middle. And I gotta grab my cleaner here so that we can get that ink off the mat so that I don't get ink all over my cards here. So we've got this fabulous strip across the center, which would be great for a greeting. So that's where we're gonna put our greeting. Let's make sure that's not wet. Okay, and then I'm gonna use some Memento ink to stamp my greeting. You'll be amazed at just how quick and easy these cards are to create, and they end up looking absolutely stunning. All right, so I'm going to stamp that Thinking of You right across the middle. Okay, and we can leave it like that, but we're going to step it up a notch. Since we're just using a single card or a single layer, we're going to step it up a bit. So we're going to add some twine, of course, right? That's a given. If you guys watch me often, you know that I use twine on almost all of my projects. Twine or threads from a ribbon or linen thread. It's a simple way to add a little bit of texture to your projects without adding a lot of bulk. We're going to add that right here. I'm just going to add a little dot of multi-purpose glue. Okay, so that steps it up a little bit, but we're not finished. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my black Stampin' Write marker. I'm going to use the fine tip, and I'm just going to add some little trios of dots. So this is going to pull in the black from my greeting and kind of ties it all together. So I'm just doing 3 little dots in a few different areas. And I've got an odd number of areas there, so you can see I've stuck with 5. You could do more. And then I'm going to take some of these dragonfly and bird embellishments. These are an online exclusive item as well. I believe, I actually didn't check, I believe they are still available. And I love these little dragonflies. These are such great embellishments. They're very similar to our butterflies in the annual catalog, but they're dragonflies and birds. They're very flat, so they don't add any bulk to your projects. And I'm just going to add 3 of these on there. And there we go. First card is done. And look how stunning that is. And it's just a single layer of cardstock. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. And then, of course, I had to stamp an envelope to match. So here I used that same image. I stamped it across the bottom and added some of those little dots, trios of dots. So then we've got a matching envelope, just to give a little hint at what's inside. So that is masking idea number 1. And then the second one, what we're gonna do, this time we're gonna start with a piece of vanilla cardstock. That's going to be our base. We're going to do one that's a little bit more fall focused. So what I've got here is I just took a piece of copy paper and I just tore it. Okay, so I've got this edge and I'm going to line up my card and I'm going to position this. Now it didn't tear straight. I could do it like that so that it's not going down straight, but I want it a little bit more straight. So I'm going to position this on here like this. So this is another masking technique idea. And masking techniques are great for 1-layer cards because they give the illusion of having layers. Okay? All right. Let's see here. We are going to start with some ink blending. I'm going to use some Old Olive ink, and I thought I had my blending brush here. Let's just grab it. Okay, so I'm going to use a blending brush to add my first layer of ink. Just tap off that excess, and then just with a light hand in a circular motion, I'm going to add a layer of that green ink. And you can make this as dark as you want it. So these card ideas are great for people who are just starting out and maybe don't have a lot of supplies, or if you're pressed for time, these are some quick and easy ideas that you can turn to make a beautiful card. And at the end, I'll kind of share some ideas. Actually, maybe I'll do it while we go along. I will share a few ideas on how you can step up these cards a little bit more as well. Okay, let me move some of these stamps. I've got so many different stamps out right now because I'm using different stamps for every card. Okay, so for this next one, I am using the Changing Leaves stamp set. Love, love, love this stamp set. This is actually part of a hybrid bundle that is available in the online exclusive, so you won't find it in any publication, but I'm just using the stamp set today. Okay, so I'm going to use this image, and then a couple of the greetings from in here. So we're going to start with this image, and I'm going to stamp my leaf, or ink my leaf, with my Old Olive, and I'm going to stamp it in a couple areas. there. So I've left my paper on, my scrap paper, I've left that on there. We'll do one, let's do it about here. Okay, now I'm gonna bring in some copper clay. And I'm gonna use the maple leaf. And I'm gonna stamp one. I didn't leave quite enough space. Let's see here. Stamp it there. Okay, we're gonna overlap. Make it look like it's purposeful. And then we'll add maybe a little bit here. Okay. So now we've got 2 layers of ink. We've got our green ink blended ink, and then we've got our stamped images. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add some splatter. So I'm gonna use my dark Stampin' Blend. This is my favorite way to splatter. I use the brush tip, and then I just take my bone folder and just tap. And that gives a really fine splatter. So that is layer number 3. And then we're gonna do our little trios of dots. Let's add a couple more here. And now we're gonna peel off this layer and look at that. So pretty. And it looks like it's a layer of pattern paper, but it's just a single layer of cardstock. Okay, let's give this a wipe. Okay, now it's time to add our greeting. So I'm going to use 2 different greetings from that stamp set. I'm going to use the one that says, "You are amazing in every single way," and thank you. So we're going to turn it into a thank you card. I'm going to bring back my Memento ink, and I'm going to stamp the longer greeting first. And then the thank you, I'm going to center right over top. Okay, and then we're going to embellish. And this time to embellish, I'm going to use some neutral sequins. You can see I've used actually quite a few of these. I don't have a whole lot left, but I'm going to use these copper colored ones. And just add a few on there. And that is card number 2. So another great masking technique. Okay, so now if you wanted to step this up a little bit, the easiest way to step up a card could be to add layers. So you could trim, you could do a vanilla base or an olive base or a copper base, and trim this panel down just a little bit, pop it up on dimensionals. You could add a tag here, so die cut your greeting from a separate piece and add a tag. You could add some ribbon underneath the tag. So those are some quick and easy ways that you could step this up. But I think it's absolutely stunning just with one layer. It's amazing what you could do with ink. All right, so here's my original sample, and here I did the envelope flap to match. So I did the same technique on the envelope flap. So you've got a matching envelope. All right, so that is card number 2. Card number 3, okay, this one I'm not gonna actually demonstrate from start to finish, but it is a third masking technique. So you can create your own template. So whether you use a die shape to cut out the center of a scrap piece of copy paper, or you do like what I did where I just cut out a rectangle and then I've got some temporary adhesive behind it, and I just positioned this right on my card front. So I cut it the exact same size as my card front, so that if I do some ink blending, I don't have to worry about getting ink around the edges. All right. And it's easy if it's exactly the same size, because then you can just line it up with the edge, use some washi tape to hold it in place. And then I ink blended with some Pool Party. I stamped the dragonflies in Lost Lagoon and Flirty Flamingo. The little arrows are stamped in Pool Party. And then I just freehand drew using Stampin' Write marker. I just freehand drew the flight line. So, and then added my greeting just below, and then some little dots. Those are from the rainbow dots. So another great masking technique, and that's just a single layer of cardstock. Isn't that stunning? So again, if you wanted to step this up, the easiest way to step it up would be to just cut this panel and layer it on top of maybe one of these colored card bases. The other thing that you could do is you could cut out this panel just a little bit larger so that there's a little bit of a white border, and pop that panel up as well. But again, it looks absolutely stunning just as a one layer card. Okay, all right. Now for this next one, we're going back to a basic white, thick basic white card base. And we're going to take, okay, so for this one, I'm using two things. I'm using a few more, but I'm using the Spotlight on Nature. I'm going to use this leaf image. And then I'm going to use my Countryside Corners, but I'm not going to use them as they are intended to be used. I'm going to use them in a little bit of a different way. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to decide what size frame I want. So I think this looks like the right size. And I just realized I forgot something. I'm going to grab something here. Okay. And then I'm going to take my leaf and my old olive ink, and I'm going to stamp this. So I got to move this out of the way, but I just want to figure out where I want to stamp it. So I'm going to do it right about there. So I'm going to slide this out of the way and stamp that down. Now while I have this, actually I should have done this on the other ones, I'm also going to stamp the inside. And then you can also stamp your envelope as well. Okay, I'll set that aside. I'll grab my little cleaner. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this, we're going to position this on here where we want it, and I'm going to use my Sharpie pen. So you can use this as well, but I find this is just a little bit thicker than what I want. So the Sharpie pen is actually my favorite pen. I write with this all the time. I absolutely love it. It's a felt tip pen, but it's fine. And I've got pretty small writing, so it works really well for me. Okay, so I'm going to position this on here. I'm going to hold it in place so it doesn't move. And then I'm going to trace around it. You can trace around the inside or the outside. Oh, and I went askew there. There we go. Had a little oopsie there. We'll see if we can cover that up. But that's another great way that you can use your dies, is to just create a little border. Okay, so that was using the Countryside Corners. Now we need to stamp a greeting. So I'm going to use the thanks that is in that same Spotlight on Nature stamp set. I'm going to stamp with Memento. And make sure my cardstock is straight. Stamp that on there like that. Okay, now to step this card up a little bit, what we're going to do is we are going to take our Wink of Stella and just add a little bit of shimmer to these leaves. The other thing that this will do, if you don't wait too long, is it will blend a little bit of that ink on there. I'll bring this up a little closer once I'm done so that you can see it. But it colors in a little bit of the leaves to provide almost like a little bit of shading. All right, so can you see that, how it kind of filled that in a little bit? And I don't know, the shimmer is probably not showing up so well on camera. I can see it like that. I don't know if you guys can. So pretty. Isn't that always the way, Carolina? All right, so we're gonna quickly do the inside, and I'm not coloring in the whole leaf. I'm just adding just a little bit of shimmer, mostly down the center. But Wink Estella is another great tool for simple card making. It's just so easy to add a little bit of ink blending. So we could leave that like that, but we're not going to. We're gonna step it up a little bit with a baker's twine bow. I'm just gonna tie it, just using white baker's twine. If you wanted to add a little pop of color, you could use some fibers from one of the ribbons that you have on hand. Just use a little bit of multi-purpose glue to add this right to the base of our leaf. And then we're gonna add some gems. So this time I'm using the transparent adhesive backed dots. And we're gonna use this bright green color. So we're gonna add a couple here. And then one more up here. And look how pretty that is. And it was so simple. And another great way to use your die sets without having to add an additional layer. And then we've got the matching leaf on the inside. And then of course you can decorate your envelope so that it matches as well. All right, so that was idea number 4. And then idea number 5, we're gonna again use a thick basic white. And these are all standard size cards, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 when they're folded. Okay, and then this one, we're gonna do some embossing. So this is another great technique that you can do on a single layer card to really step it up. For this one, we're gonna use the Magnolia Mood stamp set, which again is another online exclusive item. We're gonna use this large magnolia image right here. And we're gonna emboss it. So I'm gonna use my embossing buddy and just give this a rub. That just removes any oils from my finger, like from the cardstock that I bought on there from my fingers. It also removes some static so that your embossing powder only sticks where you want it to stick. All right, I'm gonna use some Versamark ink. Make sure that this is really, really well inked because it does have some fine details in here. And then we're gonna stamp it down kind of in the lower left corner. And I'm gonna apply pressure so that I make sure I transfer that ink, all of that ink, onto my card base. And I'll cover this over, move this out of the way. I'll sprinkle it with some gold embossing powder. Tap off the excess. I'll just dump this back in here. All right, and then we're gonna bring in our heat tool and heat it up. So if you're not familiar with embossing, the Versamark ink is it's a watermark ink, which means that you can use it on any of your colored cardstock, and and when you stamp on it with just Versamark, it will look like a little bit of a darker shade of that same color to create almost like a watermark look. But it's also a sticky ink pad. So your embossing powders will stick to it. So now when you look at it, it's very powdery. But when we heat it up, we're going to turn it into a metallic finish. So do you see it start to change? There we go. So now we've got this beautiful metallic magnolia. And I had one little spot here. Oh well, that's okay. Isn't that pretty? Okay, so now I'm going to share another little thing that you can do to your single layer cards. Well, it doesn't have to be a single layer card. I'm going to bring in my Simply Score tool, and we're going to add a little scoring detail around the edges to create a frame. So instead of adding an additional layer, we're just going to manipulate this one layer. All right, let me grab, I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool. I've got the stylus tip on here, and I'm going to do a 1/2 inch border. So let's see here. So this is the trickiest part of this whole thing because, it doesn't need to be. If you wanted to do your border from top to bottom, then it's not tricky. But I don't want it to go from the top to bottom. I want it to be almost like a frame. So I want it to be 1/2 inch in, but start about 1/2 inch up. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it. And then I know that this is 4 1/4 inches, so I'm going to try to stop around the 3 3/4 inch mark. Just going to do another layer here to make it a little bit deeper. Okay, so I haven't gone right from the top all the way to the bottom. And then we'll rotate it this way. And again, I find it more difficult to go up, so I like to try to find the groove and pull it down. Okay, so we've got 2 sides done. And then, let's see here. Okay, we need to do this side. So I'm not going to do this tiny little bit here. So this is 5 1/2 inches, so I'm going to line it up with the 5 inch mark. Just kind of go across. I want it to start about here. Okay, and then we're going to go here. This is 4 1/4, so I'm going to go about 3 3/4. Once you get it in the groove, it's really easy. Okay, so here I went a little bit further past. So you know what, to fix that, I'm gonna make it look intentional. So I'm just gonna go a little bit further past here, a little bit further past here. I'm gonna go back in here, go a little bit further past, just to make it look like it was done intentionally. All right, and then look at that. You've got this fun frame around the edges, but you didn't add any layers. Okay, so let me put this away. So that is another great way. And you don't have to just do a frame. I mean, think about all the different patterns that you could do. You could just do a couple simple lines. You could do some lines here going this way and going this way. You could do like a plaid pattern. So many different things that you could do. All right, So now we are going to stamp our greeting, and our greeting is going to come again from this Everyday Greeting stamp set. I absolutely love this greeting set. We're going to create an anniversary card. So I'm going to stamp anniversary wishes, and I'm going to do it in some petal pink. Okay, we're going to fold this down a little bit, and I'm going to stamp the word anniversary first. Make sure my card is straight. And then I'm going to come in with the wishes. Okay, so we could leave it like that, but we're not going to. We're going to bring back our Wink of Stella, and this time, instead of coloring in, we're going to splatter. So we've got these really beautiful shimmery splatter marks on our card. So we're going to do it the same way as we did with our blends, except when you use your shimmer or your Wink of Stella, you want to squeeze it a little bit so that you get some ink down to the bottom. And then you're just going to tap, and it's not far enough down. So I'm not doing this over, I'm not squeezing over top of my card because I don't want a big blob. Sometimes you do want that, but for this, I want this to be a little bit more elegant. There we go. And I'll bring this up a little closer so you guys can see the splatters. Let me just give this a wipe. All right, so can you see those beautiful shimmery splatters on there? Kind of see it. So that's another great way to use your Wink of Stella pen. And then we're going to bring back these dragonflies, and we're going to use some of these on here as well. Oh, let's not use the stylus, that's not going to help. So I'm going to be careful because this is still wet, so I don't want to smear my splatters. And I'm just going to use 2 of these gold dragonflies. And there we go. So we've got 5 beautiful single layer cards. And again, if you wanted to step this up a little bit more, you could just repeat this whole process on a smaller layer and then add maybe a gold mat and then add it onto maybe a petal pink card base. But I think it looks absolutely stunning even just like that. So let me bring them all back in so that you can see them. So we've got our embossed with our debossed frame. We've got this one that's colored in with Wink of Stella, and then we used our framelits to create a border. And then remember to create a matching envelope as well. And then we've got this one where we created a frame. And then this one where we created a look of like torn pattern paper. And then this one here with our matching envelope where we created a little border. So 5 really simple ways that you can just create beautiful cards using a single layer of cardstock. So I hope you guys got some ideas from this. If you are new to my channel, thank you so much for joining me today. And if you don't want to miss out on future videos, hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed it, make sure you give me a thumbs up. And I will include, or I have included, a full supply list in the description. So if you live in Canada and don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and would like to purchase any of the products that I use, I would appreciate you shopping from me. I hope you guys all have a fabulous weekend, and we'll see you again next week. Take care.